class on Saturday. I didn't want him to miss the class, so he's watching, but hopefully he'll be here on Wednesday. Just keep in mind the exam is on Wednesday. We'll start at 5 o'clock. It will not be the entire session. So you'll hopefully make it home for a late dinner. If you have questions over the next few days, let me know. I probably will be checking email during the Super Bowl, but aside from that, I will be around. So
Who are you rooting for?
I'm rooting for the commercials. I probably will participate in one of the squares because we are going to neighbor's house, and I will participate. Yeah. Anyone have any special plans? You just put it right up there. Anyone have special plans for the Super Bowl?
Studying for Solon's exam.
Studying for Solon's exam. Aside from that, all right, we'll have to have a vote. Maybe I'll put in my favorite commercial, but after the fact, and I'll share with the class what I thought. So logistically, guys, again, paper should be up here. Exam on Wednesday. When some people ask when the grades will be ready, just give me at least a week, and I'll try to see what I can do. I know the grades won't be posted just because of the nature of the course. Good luck. Let me say in advance for those participating in the 2019-2018 tax season, getting them returns. Good luck. Logistically, everyone's good? Any questions? Again, reach out to me. Let's summarize where we are. As promised, if today falls the way I wanted to, we will finish the entirety of the textbook, which will feel good. You'll feel accomplished as well. In terms of material, we'll just quickly remind ourselves we went through the introduction. Chapter 1 about sources of authority. Chapter 2, looking at from both sides, penalties on taxpayers, penalties on tax return preparers. We looked at Chapter 3, transactional planning and advice, potential client conflicts which come up in Chapter 6 between clients and between professionals and their clients. Always have to be sensitive to. I downplayed the importance of written opinions that really written opinions and advice. It's picked up in Chapter 6 with respect to malpractice, in my opinion. Circular 230, the aftermath of the Loving decision and Ridgely decision really don't have as much application as they once did. We talked before about 3 code sections, by the way, just again, burden of proof issues, right? Code section 7491. Initially, taxpayers had the burden of proof. We talked about 7525. We talked about 7623, right? Whistleblower rewards that periodically may crop up in your practice. Chapter 4, just like Chapter 2, morning, just got it started. And Dixie, just so you know, the paper is right up here whenever you get a chance.
Okay, sure.
Okay? Chapter 4 is split into 2 parts, and just like Chapter 2, the first part dealing with issues of client confidentiality and its scope, and the second part dealing with the issue of work product, right? Diva, I hear you whispering, which is great. The work product doctrine, which is a more limited waiver. And I am noticing compliments of many of you, thank you, Ming and Dixie, and some others who brought in, that if we do get locked into this building, we're good to go for the next year, I think. So thank you for those contributions. Chapter 5, we looked at unauthorized practice of law and what trouble, but let me emphasize, you really have to do some very dumb things to be involved in the unauthorized practice of law. Because unless you get into a courtroom, largely you should be okay as CPAs. I think we know under the Sperry decision, there's no problem practicing federal law. The only issue that you might have is if you have state issues, just be careful about trying to practice in New Jersey or New York or some other state where you're writing opinion letters or the like, that in those instances you may run into trouble. We talked about multi-jurisdictional practice. Doesn't directly bear on you, but if you anchor yourself with the wrong person, that's going to be a problem. So be careful about attorneys who come to New Jersey and are located, their licenses in Oregon or California, or you pick your state, they're not licensed here and you're working hand in hand with that person, you might go down with their ship. We began a discussion about advertising and solicitation. Our job today is to finish chapter 5, see what are the parameters of permissible advertising. In chapter 6, we talked about an issue that Tim Saya from our lecture on Wednesday spoke in depth about, but I'm going to try to fill in some of the blanks, and hopefully chapter 6 does as well. Excuse me, what kind of exposure that we have in this room as professionals with respect to malpractice. For the record, today is Saturday. I will, first of all, just share a quick story, and then when we get into chapter 6, don't forget to remind me. I gave you some foreshadowing. I will share with you my own trials and tribulations of being on the other side of a V, as in versus, and what it sort of what you can expect of what I had personally to endure. So bearing that in mind, just a quick story is that well, I'll say two stories that I'll say because they both pertain to malpractice. One of my own and one involving a CPA firm. So let's pick up on chapter 5. We're all good. Any questions about substantive questions about material we've covered? Some of you have asked me some questions, sent me some emails. I've tried to be responsive. Let me say for the record, try to get right back to people regarding their email questions. If you don't hear from me, I will not be affronted if you send it again and put an exclamation point if you don't get that. Some reason, for whatever reason we're not connecting. I think all of you have my cell phone number I've given you because I was worried about people being locked out. So if you have problems, text me and get a hold of me. All right, so let's put these issues to bed. All right, I think we left off on page 280. We did talk about, just to remind you, we did talk about the U.S. Supreme Court case, I can't pronounce anything, beginning on page 274, where I think we would all agree this attorney was truly over the top and ends up in a hospital with a woman in traction, and he's telling her, you got to retain me because I'm the right guy to handle the job. Obviously, in that kind of context, it makes it very hard to say no, right? So, the Supreme Court said this is out of balance. This lawyer had his license indefinitely suspended. That's a place you never, ever, ever want to be. So just be careful. I keep saying that time and time again because people think little violations or something that no one ever gets caught. And my wife is sitting on the ethics commission there's like 40 attorneys who sit on the New Jersey ethics commissions. And there's just a ton of ethics complaints that are regularly brought. So, and I know that's true for the CPAs of the state too. So the point is, these things clients pursue because they're not happy and they bring ethics complaints, and you just don't want to risk putting yourself where you have your license suspended. In this day, even the censor, or if someone Googles your name and they find out for some reason ethics complaint, it's not going to be good. So just be careful. Page 280, we have a case. This is involving a CPA. I don't know know who's able to read what. Some of you guys may have had the start of tax season officially began yesterday, I guess February 1st, but some people even beforehand, and with the end of January, we're very, very busy. Come on in, just started on page 280, and the paper's right there, so your placement is perfect. So, Peter, you have a chance to read this case? What happened here?
Yes, Scott Penn was a CPA from New
Just,
Jersey.
you gotta talk loudly, because I'm not sure if John in the back can hear you.
Scott Penn was a CPA from New Jersey and Florida, and was used to advertising his services to businesses.
So what do you mean by advertising his businesses?
His services as a CPA to, businesses, small-sized, medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
Um,
And he had no
used to
problem,
make-
right? Or CPA had no problem in the state of New Jersey, Garden State, welcome this kind of solicitation, right?
To make unsolicited phone calls.
By the way, show of hands, I may have asked this, how many of you have ever made cold calls to clients to get, to potential clients? Anyone in the room? No one?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Have any of you ever made cold calls to try to,
They will ask the questions, how much you charging for that and everything that they want.
right, but have you made those kind of cold calls?
We made it that call.
You did, you
Yeah,
have.
I have so many questions they ask.
So you made cold calls and people they don't hang up on you? Okay, so have you gotten clients that way?
One he came also, and after that he disappeared. I don't know when he went.
Usually cold calls, but, so you call individuals, not businesses?
No, individual.
Individuals.
If they respond us, once I get response from them, then I will call the person.
Alright, I know of several people who have built some pretty good practices by making cold calls to businesses and trying to lure the business away from their existing accountants. So you can knock it. A friend of mine is on, if anyone lives in this area, he's on every menu in every diner. He does Mark Brenner. I'm just sharing, and my friends and I always laugh because every time you spell your coffee at a diner, you're spelling it on Mark. But apparently, as a business model works, people call him up. He doesn't do the work; he forms it out, but he gets a third of the third, and it works as a business model. My point is, with these cold calls, people are able to periodically really get their foot in the door.
Is it personal injury?
Personal injury.
That's why. That explains the advertising.
I don't know, that advertising, again, you think it wouldn't work. And just so you know, I can appreciate cold calls because 30 some odd years ago, I used to work for Dial America when I was in high school. And I was one of those nagging people who would call for magazine subscriptions. And the first day I worked there, John was talking before that he can drink espresso and go right to bed. There used to be 20 of us in a room selling these magazine subscriptions, and every time you sold a subscription, you rang a bell. And we did this from 6 to 9 at night. And I still remember to this day the adrenaline that's going through because I guess I'm pretty competitive. So it was just like you wanted to ring that bell, and they would have a competition every night. Who could sell the most magazines? Those subscriptions. So anyway, I have some stories from there. Long story short, our CPA, Mr. Fain, is doing the same, right? And he's going from New Jersey to Florida and can't stop his fingers, right, guys? Look at the year of this case. This is before, what do we all want to say? What's the caller ID? Before caller ID, and people would get fooled, and they would pick up the line, and there was Mr. Fain on the line, right? So, is Florida happy with our?
No, they were trying to use the rally case against them, saying that it was creating potential harm to citizens against Florida.
Right, so Florida says this kind of solicitation is impermissible, right? And
They use these, guy and donor's conclusion as part of their argument.
I'm sorry, say that louder.
I guess Dooner was, I guess, some, former chairman of the board, and they used part of his opinion, to argue that basically that what he was doing, was, they even used the word like, desperate, in reaching clients.
They were overreaching in vexatious conduct by a CPA. And he sues, he says that his First Amendment rights are being violated. And the question is, who prevails and why? So picture if you will, because I'm not saying today or tomorrow you're gonna do this, but maybe next week you might try to make some cold calls. Does this work, Peter?
No, he wins.
Okay, he wins, meaning he won at the district court level, he wins at the appeals court level, and this gets a writ of certiorari all the way up to the US Supreme Court, right? And he does ultimately prevail. Now, why does he prevail at the Supreme Court, Peter?
Because they said that Florida didn't meet the, the standards to prove that a harm would be committed, and that, another thing that the issue that it's going to affect other CPAs and, other businesses, competition CPAs wouldn't work, because in the CPA business, unlike, lawyers, you're not trained in persuasion. So most of the, businesses should know exactly, they're smart enough to understand what the CPA is trying to sell, thereby they need to hear from others to assess which one would be more valuable to the firm, somewhat.
So
You didn't compare it to going after, like an ambulance chaser, or trying to persuade a client of information that the client would be knowledgeable. So,
Right, this is being done at the commercial context. And by the way, this is authored by Justice Kennedy. Just, you may find this interesting, you may not. As you may know, several months ago, he retired from the court, right? And that's what brought about the Kavanaugh hearings, right? So just to give you a little historical context of who authored this opinion and how this came about. So Justice Kennedy writes, hey, this is different than the personal context, this is in a commercial context, and that notwithstanding the CPA, its gripes that it needs to protect people, the reality, this has been going, just be careful, and this extends beyond this court case. The fact that someone of authority says something does not make it true, okay? The fact that someone says something does not make it true. And the fact that, and this stuff, several big law firms and accounting firms opined that certain tax shelters met the more likely than not standard, sort of under the theory, gee, if we're big enough and we say it, it must be true. It doesn't have to be true. And when the CPA board starts saying, well, look at all the harm the solicitation is doing, the reality is they couldn't show anything. And this is going on throughout the country, and notwithstanding that it's going on throughout the country, there's really no harm they can point to, right, Peter? All right, so you read the case.
Who's at the center?
There was a dissent. Do you know who wrote the dissent?
O'Connor?
Justice O'Connor. What's her claim to fame? Who is Sandra Day O'Connor? Everyone should know this. What? First woman on the court. Sandra Day O'Connor is the first woman on the court. The University of Arizona Law School is called the Sandra O'Connor. And if you want, life deals you some weird curveballs, right? Is that a fair statement? Sandra Day O'Connor, unfortunately, her husband suffers from dementia and was put in a care facility. And it was so severe, apparently he didn't know he was married, got a girlfriend, and picture of your Sandra Day O'Connor, you're visiting your husband who's with another woman, but doesn't even recognize you. So it's a really, life deals you some curveballs you have to deal with. She recently, about a few weeks ago, if you guys are current, came out that she made, just like Ronald Reagan went several years ago, when I say several, many years ago, said this is his last public speech because he acknowledged that he's suffering from Alzheimer's. She too said this is her last public speech because she has indicia of dementia or whatever. So it's kind of, we're not going to hear from her again. But she wrote the dissent. It wasn't, I think this decision was correctly decided, so dissent is going to fade into oblivion. This certainly gives people a leg up. I don't know how many of you use different social, who in this room, if anyone uses social media to promote their business, and if so, you want to share? V. Well, you're not doing it, but just, and then we can go from there. V, how do you and your husband promote your businesses? Through what?
Well, we use LinkedIn, Twitter.
And how do you use LinkedIn? Like just?
I mean, we have a marketing person who posts stuff on a regular basis, talking about any events or conferences that we may be participating in, stuff that our people do, and any social, any corporate social responsibility events that we are involved in. Just stuff like that. Facebook too. We ask that our employees like our page, and
You pay a marketing firm to keep it all fresh.
we have our own in-house marketing person.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Dedicated person, all they do is social media.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, anyone else? Or your firms?
We given adding newspaper.
Adding newspapers?
Yeah. That is local newspaper, Indian abroad. That one. We have it like local because mostly Indian people, they come to our CPA because our CPA is Indian.
Okay, so it's cultural connection. Andrew, you were going to say something?
We use LinkedIn.
And how do you do it?
In a variety of ways. I mean, one nice thing we do is it actually posts for me. I don't have to keep posting things. So things like, our firm's weekly market review, or, some pertinent topics going on in the industry, money saving things, retirement planning, things like that. So it just kind of posts for us automatically, and it's just kind of a nice feature. But I don't use it as much as some people in my firm who really use it for,
Right.
Getting funds. I've had a few approach me, but.
Anyone else? So, doesn't sound like people are hot and heavy on using social media, but as Andrew points out, and Viva's pointing out, but I'm assuming that newspaper's also online, right? So-
Yes.
All right. Some people really go over the top. Now, when I say over the top, I'm not saying that pejoratively. They spend a lot of time cultivating or trying to cultivate relationships vis-a-vis social media. And you got to be careful, and we're going to look at some questions. What are the permissible bounds of what you can and can't say and should say? So, we'll in the context of the second to last question, or the last question, when we look at it in this chapter, we'll talk about it. So also, you got to be careful about specialization certifications, because some are really legitimate and some are less so. I'm going to hand out to you 7.1 and 7.3. Some of these, here is 7.1, let me see.
I have it.
You have it?
I have all of them.
Look at it. If you can just,
Yeah.
just in case. Not everyone's as top of the game as you are, Viva.
No, I just keep it ready.
All right, well.
You told, right, some rules and regulation is important for the exam. So
All right, good,
I thought
good.
I'd keep it ready.
I just want to, in case you didn't bring it, that All right, terrific. All right, hold on one second. And I know, Viva, you already have this one probably. This is solicitation of clients.
Yes.
I'm sure you do.
7.3.
You know what, maybe you guys can just take one and pass it back and I'll. Kevin, I'll see if I can do a better job this time.
Thank you.
I think they made some extras there, that's okay. You know what? Okay. All right, so if you, I do not have 7.2. I have 7.1, 7.3, 7.4.
You can keep it right now.
All right, so 7.1, let's just take a quick look at these things. And these sort of rules, these are the model rules for lawyers. There's similar rules for CPAs that you're supposed to not make false or misleading statements regarding your services, give a material misrepresentation. A neighbor of mine, lawyer, he had other issues, but he put down his firm has 50 years of experience in a particular area of the law, but he used 50 years, but it was he and his friend together had 50 years, but it was misleading, and the New Jersey Bar Association stripped him of his license. Thought that was truly over. Now, he had some other issues before, so they thought this was one step too many, so, but they used that as a pretense to strip him of his license.
A different field of the lawyer, they have a different advertisement. Like suppose, one lawyer is working for immigration, he has something different in the advertisement, or all of has the same.
When you say that, you can advertise, and you can advertise each one's specialty.
Yes.
And your question is?
All lawyers have the same, this one.
I don't know what you mean, all the lawyers.
Means, this is some specification when you give your advertisement, when, as a lawyer.
Right.
Right, your field is like tax matter or something,
Right.
other has immigration. So they can, separate from the.
Yeah, you can have it separate. That's okay. 7.4 on the same page says the lawyer may communicate the fact the lawyer does not practice in particular fields of law. And then it goes on from there. In 7.4D, a lawyer shall not state or imply that the lawyer is certified as a specialist in a particular field unless the lawyer has obtained has been certified as a specialist by an organization that has been approved by an appropriate state authority or that has been accredited by the ABA. And the name of the certifying organization is clearly identified in the communication. So you can't just make this stuff up. 7.3, solicitation of clients. And we're gonna see this, they gotta be, you need one? That with respect to soliciting clients, you're not at liberty to just go knocking on doors, okay? And we're gonna see this in a few problems too, but if you know the person, if you look at 7.3B, the lawyer shall not solicit professional employment by live person-to-person contact when a significant motive of the lawyer's doing so is the lawyers or law firm's pecuniary gain, unless the contact is with a lawyer, a person who has a family close personal or prior business or professional relationship or a person who routinely uses for business purposes the type of legal services offered by a lawyer. Okay? In other words, you can't harass people. And whether you're a lawyer or an accountant, there's a fine line between, oh, I'm reaching out to you to give you some good advice, or you should use my services, versus nagging people and potentially harassing people. Okay? You risk getting an ethics complaint. So let's go through these problems, see what's the bounds permissibility. 5-13, which of the following statements or terms are permitted to be included in an advertisement by a tax lawyer and estate planner? If you look at problem 5-14, it says substitute the word CPA or enrolled agent, or your answer is different. So I think we can handle this. Let's go through these and see if there's any differences simultaneously as opposed to going back over them for a lawyer or an accountant. All right, so why don't we start in the back, Kevin? Why don't you start 15 years of experience with the IRS? And Dixie, you see, we'll just go back and forth. Lawyer or CPA says that. Is that okay? And then Dixie, see if you agree with Kevin.
I think that's okay.
Think it's okay, Dixie?
I think so.
Yeah, I think if you truly, whether you're an accountant or lawyer, if you have 15 years of experience with it, working with the IRS, or you work for the IRS, then this should be okay. Put a high qualified tax lawyer or CPA to work when the IRS questions your return. B, Trevor, what do you guys think?
Seems okay.
Trevor?
I agree.
Seems okay? Let me just ask you, what does a highly qualified tax accountant mean?
We did not find, so it's hard to define.
It is kind of, now look, will this get you in jail? No. Could this possibly get you into trouble? He's shaking her
No,
head.
It's like self-promotion. It's
But you
not-
gotta be careful about self-promotion, because there's a lot of self-promotion that could get you into trouble.
Well, you have tax lawyers without LLMs and tax lawyers with LLMs, so.
Well, LLM is defined, and there's nothing nebulous about that. And you guys, good news, you keep going, you get your tax degree, you can put Masters of Tax, right? But it probably would not be a good idea to put highly qualified.
How can you just put the word qualified? That would probably, fine.
Qualified is less problematic. Highly qualified as an adverb, you're going deeper into the dark, into the deep end. All right, so for your notes, I'm not trying to be equivocal. Remember, ethics class is not always black and white. So your answer, whether a lawyer or CPA, I think question B is not something I would recommend that you put. How's that? Question C, LLM and tax. Might, Ming. Okay?
What's LLM here?
That's a master's degree in tax.
It's okay.
It's okay, right? It better be, right? Because when you guys graduate from this program, I hope that you do include that, right? That you've been spending your Saturday mornings together and whatnot, and Wednesday nights, that you worked hard to get the degree, and you make sure that the world knows that, and by the way, to me at least, that should speak louder than when someone says highly qualified. I'd rather see what degree they have and see they got a degree from Rutgers than, John, you were gonna say?
No, I just have a question. So our degree is gonna be an LLM?
No, it's not, that's for law.
Okay.
For accountants, it's masters.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay?
But people usually don't put that stuff after their name.
Oh, yes, they do.
I mean, like, you know, you should not put master's degrees and PhDs after your name.
Why not?
Unless, I was told that you should put licenses, like a CPA can go after your name, but not an MBA.
Why not?
People
My
do it.
CPA put
Because
it
a CPA is
MBA
it's a license, you have to keep it going.
But we
An
paid
MBA is
for
something.
the education, we earned it.
Yeah, but you don't put BA, MBA, PhD.
Because it's basic.
You put
It's
PhD and MBA.
I don't know, you put
Yes, you
licenses
put
after your
those
name,
things.
like EA
Yeah, but
or.
not all
The
CPAs.
MBA or
I know, I think people
PhD.
overdo it, everyone likes alphabet soup after their name.
They
That's
do.
true.
Yeah.
That is-
But you worked for it, why not?
So, it's on your resume.
But
Why do
people
you
don't
need
see
to
your
put up your
resume.
name?
People
You know you're comfortable,
your
by the way,
choice.
can I just make this observation? You know you're comfortable in your shoes, one demarcation point at least. Now, I'm not so sure, with your business card, people do work hard, as Kevin's pointing out. But your offices, how many of you have your diplomas on the wall? At some point, right, John, they may be replaced, okay, when you're really, just saying, there's no right or wrong. I know people long into their careers, their entire careers have their diplomas.
Wait, do you put JD after your name?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because truth, it has ESQ.
I was about
So
to
it's-
say,
Yes, ESQ is a license, it's not a degree.
No, it's not.
It's
Yeah,
not a degree.
but doctors,
Yeah.
everyone I know, wants to tell the world because we're all feeling inept in some way, so this is our way to say to the world,
and
I'm not as inept as you might think or I might think about
and it's to
myself.
prove that you're qualified in one way or the other.
I mean,
All right, we will have that philosophical discussion on another day. Question D, Ping, Andrew, can you say maximum refund or it's free? That's not a good thing. That is, whether you're a CPA or a lawyer, putting aside the ethics issue, don't open your door, speaking of chapter 6 and malpractice, don't open the door for the plaintiff's attorney. Tim will tell you, for those who came on Wednesday, you don't want to open your door to exposure where, plaintiff's attorney says to the jury, look at what he says about himself or she says about himself, and they don't deliver. Because juries don't like people who overpromise and underdeliver, right, guys? So don't put yourself there. It's not beyond the ethics issue. California taxes welcome in the Nevada Yellow Pages.
Nope.
So, Viva, this got your name on it because you might put that ad in. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. John, what do you think?
yes.
We don't put in advertisement this way. If any client will call and they just ask that, you guys helping me for the California taxes, then
But,
we say
but
yes.
could you, Viva, could you put in an ad in Pennsylvania and saying,
No.
why could, if you're a CPA, you're a CPA, you wanna get some business from across the Delaware, and say, hey, because a lot of people, let's just assume, guys, California accountants charge a lot to do tax returns, because the cost of doing business is higher in California, right? And a lot of New Jersey law firms solicit business from New York City because, the per square footage in New York is a lot, and it can be done a lot cheaper in New Jersey. Is there a problem?
They're subject matter experts.
I mean, if this is federal law, or if they're, as a CPA, you're not practicing law by doing tax returns, right? Your reaction, I know you're hesitating for a second, but there's not an ethical problem with you doing returns in other states, right?
No, it's not ethical problem. That this is, we mentioned
What do you mean, what thing are you mentioning? You
California
just,
taxes welcome.
yeah, in other words, I mean, it's not the most artful advertisement, by the way, but putting that issue aside, but let's do a better advertisement. You just say, we do California tax returns, and you list your Nevada address. Is that a problem?
I mean, you may have clients that do business in California too, but they're in Nevada. They have income in both states, so
Right.
you want to take care of them.
Yeah, so I just, listen, I appreciate everyone's skepticism, because that's a good way to approach all this. But then at some point you gotta come up with legitimate reasons, just like the Florida Accounting Licensing Board tried to challenge Mr. Frame. You can't just say it's bad, and we say it's bad, and we said so. You really have to have legitimate reasons, okay? So skepticism is okay, but then you really have to figure out from there.
So yes.
So I think this should be okay. I recommend that they get a new advertising company, but putting that aside. Question F, experienced tax lawyer in this case. Peter, what do you say?
I would say no.
Not good? And Devontae?
I'll say yes.
Okay, and just justify why you say yes and why you say no, Peter. Peter, you go first. Why do you say no?
I just think that, experienced tax lawyer,
Experience.
putting out what you do, so have a specialty in certain type of law, which should be worded that way. Experienced tax lawyer, what does that mean? What?
And why do you say,
I was referring to B, how we said how it qualifies. So I was thinking that if you just say experienced taxpayer, you are experienced, it doesn't state exactly how
Well,
many years you are.
right, experience could be, I've been on the job for a day, because a few hours before I didn't know anything, and now I know more, or I'm experienced because I have 50 years of practice, so it could, and by the way, if you Google this, you'll see the taxpayer, or excuse me, the professional lost here. It was considered too ambiguous. Because the word experience can mean way too much, right? So, again, you just don't want it to be misleading. The public has a right to know that it's professionals, that's why it's self-policing. Trevor?
What if you do have 50 years of tax experience?
It's still, even if you have 50 years, it's not a great, will you, to get to B's issue, I don't think you'll be stripped of your license, but they might censor you, the licensing board, because it is ambiguous. And if you say yes to this, you may, again, from a public policy perspective, where do you draw the line if you're the licensing board?
But it's true.
It's true, but to the public, they don't know what 50 years worth of experience. Does that mean you were doing it 24/7? I understand what you're saying. And I don't recall the specific facts of the case and how experienced these people actually were. So I don't know. Let's put it this way. If you have less than 30 years of experience, that may not be considered experience. Certainly 50 years in this room, we would all agree, those are experienced people. John?
What if you were like over 50 years experience with experience, or does that make a
I mean,
difference?
I think that would be a better,
Yeah.
okay? These are all gray areas, so, but just having the word experienced, CPA could be problematic. How about refunds in a flash? In this case, Nick, Brian, what do you think?
I'd say no.
Brian?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, what does flash mean, guys?
Right away.
Second.
Right away, different people have different versions of that.
Well, they used to offer them back in the days.
What was that?
They used to offer them back in the days.
Yeah, well,
It was 1 year old or whatever.
yeah, well, those
Isn't
were.
it the same deal?
And then I can answer question H, because we've been down this path, that you can say masters in tax law, even though from let me say,
But I don't like
I know V is not.
I don't know,
I don't
right?
like
You don't like it,
I don't
but-
think anyone should put degrees after their names. You can put licenses after your names, but not after your names, but not degrees.
But
And-
again,
How
why?
do you
I
distinguish
just-
yourself then?
What?
How do you distinguish yourself?
Exactly.
That LinkedIn, people can check you out.
Who do you trust? Who do you trust more? Someone with more letters after their name or less?
Exactly.
In fact, I'm more likely to be skeptical of someone who puts more letters after their
Really?
name than someone who does not, and actually.
And you're
I-
gonna
yeah.
go through all the trouble of looking them up
I mean,
and
they're just
checking
more
every
secure.
single
People who have less,
credential.
fewer letters after their name and actually have the degrees seem more secure. And-
I don't care about their security or
I
insecurity.
don't know, I feel like you can get licenses and accreditations though of any type. A degree is pretty
I mean,
cut
you
and
could
dry.
start off with any, like,
exactly.
you could
It's
start
not
off with
degree.
an associate's
Oh, this
degree and
one
then a
is not.
bachelor's degree and this master's and that master's.
That's why
That's
people
right.
do it
That's
with
what
their
degree.
masters
That's
and
a
their
very
PhD.
clear
You have a master's degree.
Like, you can go out and get
versus
CP
just-
is
a
different. A CP
certified
should be
tax
after your
But
name.
I'm saying if you have a master's
Yeah,
CPA
Sir, you can
versus
get
just a
certifications
CPA,
in
would
anything
rather
you
go
want.
see?
I like the hot and heavy debate,
I
but in the
wouldn't-
interest of
I
time,
wouldn't think, I would look
We're-
into
we're-
the person.
we're gonna
Maybe
go
this
back to
person's not
question
advertising
8I.
for MBA.
Kevin, you're up on deck. Minimize the effect of probate plan now. What do you think, Kevin? And Dixie, what do you think?
I think that would be a little skeptical. I would be skeptical.
Okay, and Dixie?
I agree with him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit, I don't know if it's gonna land you in trouble, but it's not clear what is being said here. And anytime there's an ambiguity about what is being said.
I feel like that's misleading though.
I'm sorry?
I feel like that's misleading, you're gonna lead people to think anything that's unrealistic.
Doesn't say anything.
They're not saying avoid probate or this. or-
Listen, minimize the effect, John, you're 100% right. On the other hand, there's a lot of people in the public who wouldn't quite understand what does this minimization mean. So, not gonna get you in trouble, probably not gonna get you
Yeah, I'm not
around.
gonna go recommend people to go advertise that, but I can't see that being something that would
I
be
hear you.
slapped.
This is not a true-false exam question, so good news for your team, so. How about question J, listed in the bar register are preeminent lawyers. Now, V, Trevor, what do you think? Can you put that?
Well, if you can buy that stuff, if you can buy this being a preeminent lawyer, most of these super lawyer magazines and stuff you can buy.
All right,
Being
Trevor?
featured in this
Is
magazine
it-
and that magazine and,
Is that what it's saying? Like you're in some sort of magazine or something? Is
Well,
it-
we'd have to know, right, what the bar register of preeminent lawyers is, right? Is it, as V said cynically, where you pay a few, you know, how many of you have been solicited as being, you should be in who's who of whatever?
yeah.
And for a few $100s or a few $1,000s, we can get you there. And by the way, some of these things, like, have any of you ever had to look into reputation.com? And some of
That's a
these things?
thing.
Because sometimes the reviews on some I checked out this, a neighbor of mine who's an auto mechanic and he has his own shop. And he has 50 reviews and they're all 5.0s or 4.9s, and I know that's not possible. Because you know and I know when it comes to automobile repairs, have you ever met 50 people consistently who say this person walks on water? So, at some point you're gonna take away your own credibility, but putting that issue aside, I do think, by the way, he can do it, right, as an auto mechanic. But we as professionals, I think you've got a serious ethics violation if you start putting in your own reviews, all right? So just be forewarned that could be a problem. But question J could go either way for your notes because it really depends. Is there a true bar register of preeminent lawyers that's authorized by a state authority, okay? It can't just be a group of CPAs or lawyers getting together, creating their self-serving preeminent list, right? How about, V was mentioning about we all see super lawyers. Can this work, Mike, Ming? What do you think?
I said no.
You said no?
I think you could say that. You could
Yeah.
say it,
We
but
always see
it's a
this.
paid thing. You can buy
Is
that
super layer,
stuff.
is that paid?
I want to tell you something because I know B, notwithstanding your cynicism, which is well placed. You know, I have, by the way, for the CPAs of the world, I've seen super dentists, I've seen super physicians, I've seen super lawyers, I've never seen super CPAs. Okay? But it is not paid.
It's not paid?
My friends constantly barrage me, can you fill out the survey and put my name in? It's a popularity contest.
Oh.
But you do not pay for that.
Okay.
And if you get enough votes, you get in.
So you're voted for by your peers?
Voted by, when I say voted, you submit and just say, it says, who do you consider the best? So you just, if you solicit enough people,
So
unless
since
I'm
you
missing
scratch my
something.
back, I'll scratch yours next year.
Basically.
Not next year, this year, you want that, right? But, finally, New Jersey did sign off and people said that's okay, that, because it is quote-unquote evaluated by your peers, and the New Jersey Supreme Court signed off saying that was permissible advertising, all right?
Tell you what, this class has made me not feel like such a cynic, you know, I
Okay.
feel like I'm surrounded by more people that view the world as cynically as I do.
Okay, so John's in that cynic camp, I may have brought him over, right? It's not the Elysium that you might have thought it was, right? All right, so, question K, again, we were given the stamp of approval. Question, L, all tax problems resolved, eliminate or reduce all tax debt. So Ping, Andrew, what do you think that?
Big no.
I think Kevin's gonna jump in there. Andrew, you say?
I wouldn't do that.
Ping? Well, Kevin said a big no, not a Ping's no was a little bit of a quiet no, but I think that's a problem. The word all is problematic on several different levels, but, so, question M, naming a law firm, the Galler Law Firm, which, by the way, that's one of the co-authors of our book, if you didn't connect the dots here, where the firm's practice is limited to the representation of clients in tax matters. Eva, you okay with that? If it was the Galler CPA firm or law firm, or you're not okay, John? Peter's okay. Eva, what's your hesitation? I thought you were the one who just raised it. You can put your name in a firm. Hopefully you have a good name.
Yeah.
Okay, there shouldn't be a problem.
I'll say most every law firm I've ever seen a sign for probably
Right.
having a problem with this year.
I mean, they're limiting it to tax clients. They're saying.
Yeah, here's the scope of what we do. Question N, can you, Devontae, make a reference to the fact that you are a U.S. naval aviator?
I
Say
say no.
no? And Nick, what do you say?
I would say yeah.
Okay, so Devontae, why do you say no? Not sure? Nick?
I just feel like I've seen this before. People put it in
Can
there.
I make an observation? Does everyone agree with me that no matter how good or bad the movie is, if it pertains to baseball in the United States, it always gets a pass, like it's gonna be considered good, because how can you say something bad about a baseball movie, right, if you're in the United States? Similarly, Devontae, you're not gonna let a former retired naval officer not put the fact that they served proudly with our country. So, I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I don't think the Bar Association wants to say, how could you do that?
I don't see that as swaying somebody from thinking you're qualified or not in a bad
So-
way in any
Right,
shape or form.
exactly.
He just wants to get fellow military, ex-military.
Right, or someone who
whatever
says, you know,
aviation.
served our country, I'm paying homage, I may hire this person.
Is that-
And you know what, God bless them if they do, I mean, I respect that, meaning, you know, so Devontae, I don't think it's a problem. And again, I understand, John is now in our camp, little cynicism, never hurt anyone, but then you can't just say no, all right? I mean, you can, but then you gotta justify it and have a good justification. So in this case, I don't think you'll find one.
I don't see that as making someone decide whether or not they're qualified to do the job.
Right.
That's just whether I like the person more or not.
Exactly.
Like if they said model car collector or something like that, if they're
Yeah.
advertising.
Not gonna play a persuasive role and.
It's the universe that's made it up.
All right, 514, we did, similar rules apply for CPAs, can't be false or misleading. Suppose Sylvia, is an attorney, a CPA, certified financial planner. B, this will drive you crazy, probably has a lot of initials after her name. Suppose she was only a certified financial planner and attorney subject to the model rules, had been hired to do financial planning for a client, Raul, who wanted to invest $500,000 inherited from an uncle in order to provide for his children's college educations. She does the work. Later in the same year, she calls Raul to explain to him that she can provide to him in the way of estate what she can provide to him in the way of estate planning. Is she permitted to make that telephone call? So, what do you think, Nick, Brian? Can she make that call?
Say yes.
You say yes, Brian?
I agree.
Why? I thought we said though, under the first of the two Supreme Court cases, you can't make personal solicitations.
7.3, B2,
Okay.
or B3.
Sounds like battleship. B2, B3.
Because they've done work for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just have to, the model rules do permit that if you have an existing professional relationship, right, that you can, right, you can make a solicitation.
Because otherwise, how would you tell them you have other services to offer?
Right. So this is not a cold call. This is not someone laying up at Traction. Me?
I was Googling this whole master's degree thing.
Oh my God, let it go!
And it says that the only degrees you should put after your name are doctorate degrees, nothing else.
That's cool.
Hold on, can I ask you, what is the site you're on?
It's resume, it's a resume building site.
Well, but that's not a business card. Right?
I don't know, I think it just.
Just let it go.
I hate it. I wouldn't go to someone who has alphabet soup after the name unless those are licenses. And
I mean,
I want to see licenses, not degrees.
All right, you've been warned. If you want B's business guys, you know what you need to do. Page 291, problem 5-16. If Smith is a tax lawyer from New Jersey who moves to Florida and attempts to solicit new business exactly the same way Bain did, and the Florida bar successfully disciplined Smith for in-person or live telephone solicitation prospective clients. So, in that case, John, is that problematic or not? And then Kevin, see if you agree with John.
it's 16, right?
Fame's the guy from the
He
case.
was the CPA who moved from New Jersey to Florida. But now, instead of Fame, we have Smith, who's the lawyer.
I'd say no,
Not permissible.
not permissible.
Kevin?
I don't know, but I would agree there because he's not allowed to practice in Florida.
So Dixie, are you on the same page? 2 no's?
I'm not sure.
B?
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't have a Florida license, then he should be.
Unless you already knew the person.
Well, forgetting about Florida license, can he do the in-person solicitation?
Oh, no.
Why not?
didn't we read somewhere that it shouldn't be in person?
Unless you already know the person.
Unless you already know the person, yeah.
Okay, do we have authority for that, guys? The old.
It's on one of the pages that you gave me.
Yeah.
So, but look at page 274, the Okoralik case. The Supreme Court said that this lawyer cannot make, right, in-person solicitations, and yes, it's in the model rules as well, right? So it's in both places. Right, so that's gonna be a problem. Everyone agree? As a lawyer, you have less wiggle room than a CPA. Now, there are many lawyers and CPAs who are both, right? So, Trevor, do you have the special sauce of how, if I always say for tax, do a little role playing, pretend you're Mr. Smith, Trevor, Mike, two, Ming, two, the three of you. Come up with a strategy for yourself or Mr. Smith of how you might be able to pull this off, Trevor. Is there a strategy, or you're never gonna be able to get what you want?
To get, to
You
solicit.
want business, so how are you gonna do it?
Social media.
No, but you wanna do it in Florida. How can you achieve your objective to reaching out to these people? Just think. Say again, John?
Don't reach out as a lawyer, reach out as a CPA.
Well, wouldn't this just involve a multi-step process, guys? It seems to me that if you want to get business in Florida, reach out as a CPA, try to get to do their tax return, right? And once you do their tax return, then offer your legal services. And as silly as that sounds, that would be the recipe to augmenting your business, right?
That would be because you already have a prior relationship with the person, correct?
Exactly, and the model rules permit that, right? So do not solicit cold as a lawyer and say, I could do your legal work. That's gonna get you disbarred. But under the frame case, you can reach out and say, hey, I'm a great tax return preparer. Start doing their tax work. Now, some people might say, hey, can I reach out to them to do legal services after I do 3 tax returns or 4? That I can't answer, no one can answer. But once you have a relationship, the word relationship's a little bit, what does that mean? Is it a first date, second date, third date? But, what does it mean? Speaking of dates, I don't know if you guys listen to the radio. Have you heard, I couldn't.
They started that one thing, you can ask, like, a boyfriend is calling to the radio office.
Well, they always have War of the Roses
War
or
of the
2
Roses.
shows, and then they also have a thing called Blown Off, like after the first date, why did this person not call you back?
Yeah.
And,
That's ghosting.
what was that?
That's ghosting.
Posting?
Ghosting.
GH, like ghost.
Okay.
Ghosting.
Yeah, why are they ghosting? I can't believe War of the Roses or Blown Off, either of those are real. They have to get paid actors and actresses because it is just, some of the things people say on the radio just don't make sense. All right, or supposedly. All right, so your notes, everyone's got 5-16B, we're good? 5-17. Again, I can appreciate Linda and Michael, what they say in these situations, because these are real world. Mary has a 7-year-old son, Herb. Mary's an attorney specializing in tax and estate planning as well as design of pension plans. Herb is in second grade, plays lots of soccer. Mary sits on the side watching. And last week, a new kid helped me with, the new kid's name is Sven? Okay, I don't know, I've never met a Sven before. Arrived for soccer along with mom Gertrude. Gertrude is a resident physician at a local hospital. She and Mary talk about things. Gertrude responds to Mary's inquiry about what kind of work she does, explains she's planning to open her own pediatric practice when her residency is complete. What can Mary do under the legal ethical rules to explain to Gertrude that Mary can help Gertrude set up her practice in a tax sensible way, designing a pension plan, working through the use of other tax saving fringe benefits, not to speak of helping Gertrude with estate planning, which is essential for a young doctor with a 7-year-old soccer playing son. So in this situation, guys, I don't recall if we, Mike and Ming, I don't know if you guys have the M letters, so can you help Mary out here? What can she do?
Are you asking me?
No, I got Mike and Ming because they got, not a V in Mary, there's no V in Mary, but Mike and Ming both have an M letter. Can Mary do this? She can't do this. Mike, agreed?
No.
She can't do this. Ping,
I think okay.
why?
Because she knew and then know this person at Saks Field. So which means it's a talk, they know each other by the kids' activity. And later on when they say yes, they can approach the business.
I mean, just keep in mind, you guys were looking at 7.3, solicitation of clients. I think Peter made this reference too about the fact that you have a personal relationship. And personal doesn't mean you have to be dating or married to the person. It just means you could be neighbors with the person. That's okay, as long as, if you look at 7.3C, you can't, start harassing every time you see Gertrude on the soccer field, start saying, you really should retain my services or else, your practice is gonna sink, right? At some point, it becomes unwelcome solicitation. So I think it's okay to say, hey, I can help you and leave it at that. But at some point, you might get an ethics complaint if you, every time you see 3 times, in a row, you keep pushing your wares. All right, so for your notes, Ming, Mike, Ming, we're on the same page. This is okay. 5-18. Jacob and Scott belong to the same synagogue. Both have been members for 15 years. They run committees together, chat casually. They run into each other before and after service. They never discussed professional financial matters before. Jacob, a tax lawyer, hears, quote unquote, through the grapevine that Scott has just won $8 million in the state lottery. Would it be ethically permissible for Jacob to offer to assist Scott with tax issues arising from his financial finanza? So Viva, John, what do you think?
Scott can come in front to Jacob and ask him the advice because they are never issued together. So Jacob cannot give advice in front or like.
Well, obviously you would want to do this with client confidentiality,
Yes.
but can he reach out? Can Jacob reach out to Scott?
No, if Scott, he can ask them because they are not discussing their professional and financial matter.
They're absolutely not. John, do you agree?
I mean, if he's happened to be sitting there and passing on a break in a committee meeting or something like that, and said, hey, I have to do all
Does it have to be a committee meeting, or can he call him up and say, hey, congratulations, I have...
Calling him up could be pushing the envelope, but if they're in person, I can't see that being disallowed.
Yeah.
Peter, you're on the same page?
I mean, this is like a gray, but I think it's permissible.
I mean, this is...
There is a relationship. I mean, it sounds like an ambulance chaser per se, as it's reading on, you just found out you wanted this money, let me call him.
Right.
But there is a relationship that has established.
Yeah, I mean, if they chatted, built a semi-existing
15
relationship.
years they see each other, so...
It doesn't matter what they were doing, there's a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'd all agree there's some dark gray area, to use your verbiage, which is appropriate. I think this is okay, but it could get problematic. One phone call, that's it, hey, I heard, if you think you need it. I mean, the better answer is, I think I could help, but if you feel uncomfortable, because I'm a neighbor, I know 3 other people who can help too. I mean, and that might be the right thing.
I feel like that's not even so much as like an ambulance chase situation, like a professional courtesy.
And a friend.
Yeah.
You know.
You're not saying gimme, you're saying I can help you.
Here's a tough ethics question I saw in the magazine recently, that if you're a dermatologist and you see someone walking down the street, I forget in what context, but you see something that could be a melanoma, do you keep walking, or do you say to the person, you know, I'm a trained dermatologist, just you should have that looked after? That's a tough issue, right?
Why?
What do you say, Trevor?
I said, why is that tough? Obviously, you tell them.
So you say obviously you do.
Yeah.
As a
Complete stranger.
Yeah.
As a doctor, you have a
You should tell. You should.
responsibility.
Yeah. If you're trained to eye that out,
Yeah,
and you
don't
see
doctors
it.
have a responsibility to act like if they saw an accident on the side of the road?
They really don't have.
They can't.
I thought.
They had, there's rules that they can't be sued.
They cannot
Good
dis-
Samaritan laws that protect them, but they have no proactive obligation to say
Only
anything.
for like, for example, if you
So
had
what's
doctor
that
on your license
Hippocratic
plate or
oath?
something
No,
like
that's
that.
only if they walk into an emergency.
Yeah.
That they take,
have to see you
what does
no
the
matter what.
Hippocratic oath say then?
I mean, Hippocratic oath just says you'll take the get of your patients, but
Right.
a complete
Oh.
stranger is not a patient.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I
Or
had
even in
like
a
on
hospital,
a
you
show on
don't know
TV, this guy had like on HGTV, Tarek, he had like I think it was cancer here, and somebody called him, a nurse, and he did have cancer.
So he just looked like he had cancer?
I mean, he had something.
Oh, he had something on his neck, okay.
Yeah, and the nurse called and said, you should
I
check."
mean, I don't know, Trevor, I hear what you're, and I can appreciate, I think I would say something, but I can appreciate someone who, for whatever reason, might not, that there's, I should see if I can get a copy of that and cut and paste it to you guys. It was an interesting discussion. So my point though, that was a digression of saying, these are tough issues, there's not black and white. 5-19. Can tax lawyer enter into a referral agreement with CPA pursuant to which tax lawyer agrees to refer any of tax lawyer's clients in need of accounting work to CPA, and CPA agrees to refer any CPA's clients in need of legal work to the tax lawyer? So, Bonte and Nick, what do you guys say? Permissible or impermissible?
I wanna say permissible, only if the client knows that the CPA and the lawyer has an agreement.
So you're saying you gotta make disclosure, Nick?
I agree.
I think you gotta have a problem though with exclusive agreements, okay? Anytime it's exclusive, you may put the client at risk that they're not getting the best help possible. So the rule says you can enter into non-exclusive, but the word exclusive is problematic because, again, these professions are supposed to be looking after for the client's best interests. And if you have an exclusive relationship, the client may not be getting the benefit of the right person. So, if you look at the model rules, you really can't enter, say again?
7.2.
7.2 says you can't enter into an exclusive arrangement.
Lawyer shall not compensate or give promise anything as odd as the person recommended or sort of exception to that.
And they're not gonna apply here. So, for your answer, I was looking for a little, your cynicism, Devontae, that you should say no here, okay? Here you have good justification, because again, the client may not be well served here. You can, I mean, I have, many of you may have informal relationships with people that you refer work to and they refer work back to you. But it would never be exclusive. Now, we're gonna get into social media. 5-20. Which of the following posting on social media website by a tax lawyer is permissible, assuming it's to be true? $200,000 refund from IRS for client, celebrating tonight. Ryan, permissible or impermissible?
Yes, permissible.
John?
I would say, no.
Not permissible. Kevin, tie break.
I would say it's not permissible because it's like you're promising something.
Well, the problem with $200,000 refund, maybe the person was, seeking a $2 million refund or $200 million refund. We've got a really lousy result here. Maybe you're getting inebriated because you've got such a bad result. So it is misleading. There's nothing, clients can't understand this, nor what this really means, right? Anytime you're projecting something that can be misconstrued, probably not within the realm of being permissible. How about $200,000 tax refund from IRS? My client is delighted. Dixie, B?
I think it's okay.
Dixie?
I'm not sure, I don't think so.
Trevor?
I think it's fine.
Think it's fine? You guys know what the word delighted means?
Well, maybe the client said, I am delighted, thank you.
Yeah, but it's too broad, it's too ambiguous.
I mean, it's not clear exactly, again, your perception, or maybe the client did say that, but is your, maybe not, and that's your perception that my client is delighted, maybe they're not, or they projected they were delighted, but they were really not. Yeah, I mean, this is not ideal in terms of V. It's kind of funny that you're troubled by someone who puts their initials after
Yeah.
their name, which is true,
Yeah.
meaning that we know that to be factually true, but this is just out there in the ether. Who knows what the
Well,
reality
when
is?
it comes to advertising, it's a different matter, but when it comes to.
Why is it different?
I hate
You
when
have to
I see
advertise
degrees after
yourself.
people's names. It just indicates insecurity to me.
Well, anyway, for your notes, guys, one little I and two little I, Trevor, I still say, the CPA, licensing board, the ABA, I don't think they would look upon either of these fondly if they were posted on your LinkedIn site. 5 tax refunds obtained for clients last week. Who's next?
I mean, I think it's permissible, but stupid.
I mean,
When you
yeah,
say-
it's poor advertising.
I mean, I do think it's a bit misleading.
I mean, it's pretty clear though, it's literally just saying 5 tax refunds were obtained for clients.
Yeah, but that's reasonable because you could have done 20 and out of 20 you got 5 and the other you didn't.
There's nothing misleading about the fact that 5
But
tax
that's
refunds.
factually true, but what are you
But then
saying?
why is 2 not okay then? Then if 3 is okay, then 2 is okay.
I didn't say it was.
Okay.
I mean, I think these are not gonna be, things that the licensing board of the state is gonna welcome you putting down.
I don't think these are that would be listed as like a model statement of what you should say, but I don't see how
I
3 is.
wouldn't do that, but I don't see why.
I don't
it'd be a
see
problem.
how it's
Because
true-ish.
it can be misconstrued by the client, that the person,
How though? What could the client? What argument would the client make? I heard you
You're
got
suggesting
something-
that you're gonna do the same thing for
Yes,
other
exactly.
people. Would-
I mean,
But then,
That's
I think
yeah.
it's clear that, you gotta not know English to not understand. Come on. If someone finds this misleading, it's advertising. If you find this misleading,
Look,
then you don't know English.
you guys, everyone in this room, I think, let me emphasize, I think, and myself included, I've done Google searches and often I go on RIA to get tax research, but periodically, like you, I wanna get something that I know I'm not gonna get on RIA, in particular, some state issues, like I wanna figure out executor commissions, and I quickly go and, what do? I get a practitioner site. How many of you have gone, and you get a practitioner site who's trying to educate the public? that's a common device because, and it's not a bad device because I pick it up, and if I were a lay person, once I read that person's website, I might say, hey, this is good, they must know what they're talking about, and the professional's phone number and contact information is listed. Everyone, you guys have been there? And I'm just gonna point out in Ford law, it says a general description for deducting home office. Is that permissible or not? As a class, we could say, yes, right? I don't think that's gonna be, but that's not gonna be a problem, right? It's just a general statement of, and I think some of this stuff is relative. Everyone's comfortable with that. One little I, two little I, and three little I, you sort of get the heebie-jeebies, right? Like what is really being said here? What does it mean? So, John, you were gonna say something?
Isn't it sort of like just saying like since I was able to get 5 refunds, like I'm a better tax accountant than
But
someone else?
are you truly?
No, that's what I'm agreeing with.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so we're on the same
Yeah.
page. I mean, the fact you got 5 tax refunds, Peter, you said maybe they applied for 20 and they only got 5, maybe they're really lousy at what they do. All right, so, unless you guys, and feel free over the next few days or whenever, look at some professional websites. I don't think you're gonna see anything close to this one little I, two little I, and three little I.
I feel like 3 little I's is kind of fairly heavily advertised, like H&R Block.
H&R Block, be careful. Listen, during the Super Bowl, what are you gonna hear lots of? You're gonna hear 3 words, which I sort of wanna throw a book at my TV. No, free, free, free. Free, 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 free. You guys have been hearing that?
Yes.
And if you don't mind me saying, and this is what would happen if Congress ever started regulating tax practice, that would not happen. In fact, when I used to be in contact with, I see her name, who's the woman who was previously in charge of the Office of Professional Responsibility, she really, I'm drawing a blank, because she gave lectures to our class years ago before she stepped down. In any event, she was really on top of advertising and really drew in the bounds of particularly some of these settlement companies that you hear about. But you know and I know, most people who get on TurboTax, can they do it for free, guys? They start you off where it's gonna be free, and then they pitch why you have to buy their services. And there's a whole to-do about that, so.
Question, do you know if H&R Block and those big other similar companies were big in supporting loving obviously, like financially, or do they have any special interest groups?
You know, I don't know which side of the
They were
fence.
definitely,
They are big, by the way, do not kid yourself. Intuit,
Yeah.
the companies behind, when California tried to institute something called Free File, and it was legitimately from the they are vociferous about trying to protect their turf and saying this is nothing short of Big Brother, and this is the end of the world essentially if the government tries to help taxpayers complete tax returns. All right, so it borders on just outrageous. Anyway, question 4 you got okay. Question 5 little I, same as 4 little I, followed by email us to talk about your home office situation. Is that okay? Is that okay? Aside from the poor English, you don't email us. I always tell, you don't say email me, right? That's just bad English. You say, please send an email to me, okay? But I see people do that all the time. Anyway, is that problematic, Viva? John, you okay with it? I think that's okay. I mean,
Letting them come to you.
yeah. How about 6 little I? Same as 4 little I, but the posting is on a public blog. No email or address or telephone number is provided, but the posting says, tell us about your home office situation. Is that, Peter, okay? Viva saying it isn't. Viva, explain, and then Peter will see if he agrees with you.
At least they have to provide the office person who's asking the information, right?
I don't know what they have to provide. Can you have a website as professional that says soliciting your personal circumstances?
I say yes. Be honest, yeah.
It's like a scam.
Yeah, maybe it's scam.
Could be a scam.
Yeah.
Tell us your social security number and
Yeah.
we'll do a free credit report for you.
Do you know that in this type of really big scam is coming out? It just they give you big trophy and like they are giving you right now, and in front of that they're taking so much money from you, and you don't know that.
I don't get it. They give you a big trophy, but
Then suppose I'm looking for the job so desperately that I need a job right now, and someone offering you right now the job. They're giving you all the benefits, everything, and in front of that they will ask you, we will give you a home job. You don't have to come office, nothing. You have to come at home. That's it. And we will provide you everything, office supply, everything. But you have to deposit $1,000 for us that to providing office supply to you, and then
anyone who does that has to.
this type of case is coming.
Oh.
And then the 1,000 is gone and you got nothing.
There's a lot of scams out there.
Same thing.
You know, in terms of tell us about your office situation, Peter, you're okay with it. Again, as professionals, I just wonder if you may put yourself in an awkward situation, because once the person sends that.
I mean, I would not do it, but I just.
No, but Tim say if he were here, he would say, once you ask for a person's information, do you have a client, and then if they tell you certain things, it may get them penalized. Have you de facto got a client there that can sue you because the client was, all of a sudden had expectations that you would tell them the good, the bad, and ugly. So I don't know if it's to respond to Peter, to respond to Viva. I don't know if this is a problem from an advertising perspective, but from a professional perspective, you're putting yourself at risk. Because as soon as the person responds, you may have a client on your hands, and then things may happen from that you don't want to happen. So this is the kind of thing I would not do. How about a list of former clients who were happy with the practitioner's services? Can you list your former clients? You can with the permission of the client. I have seen, as long as you get the permission of the client. All right?
I
And
feel like
yes.
that's like a point of reassurance to future clients, they know that
Right.
this.
Here's a list of references.
Yeah,
Client
Yeah.
testimonies.
yeah, I feel like that's
Right.
supporting, helpful, rather
Yeah.
than deceptive.
Right. So that should be okay. Again, predicated on getting client's permission. Question B. Suppose the tax lawyer is a member of a site such as LinkedIn, Yelp, Facebook, and a friend or connection or former client posts an endorsement or enthusiastic testimonial about the lawyer on the lawyer's page. Do the same standards apply to this posting as would apply to a lawyer who had posted it herself? If not, what standards apply? By the way, I pulled up, you guys can pull up, I went on Google, pull up all this stuff. I pulled up this ethics opinion, and you can do it yourself. And by the way, you guys are younger than I am, but my kids, you're out a big share, and you guys may do this yourselves. But it's certainly kids will say to their siblings or say to their friends, hey, I can't post this myself. Do you mind posting A, B, and C about me? Have you guys seen that or done that yourself, where friends ask you to post certain things about themselves that they couldn't do?
Well, on LinkedIn, people ask each other for referrals all the time, or to give like, I don't know, no, they're not called referrals, they're called recommendations. They call something like that. You can just send your ex colleague, a request to put something nice about you on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and if they do it, you do the same for them.
Endorsements, you mean?
Is that what it's called?
Where you say, you know, you're
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
proficient
yeah,
in
they
accounting or
endorse certain
something, yeah.
skills.
Well,
for-
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so they say that, oh, like, you know, I can do tax services, or I can do accounting services, or
Right,
whatever.
so, endorsements, that's the right word. And, but I see this routine, so it's like a cross endorsement, and like a quid pro quo all the
Yeah.
time. And how meaningful or how truthful, who knows? But the point is, can you just sit back if people write these wonderful things about you and just let it be? And some of you may not have had a chance to pull this off Google. Nick, do you have what do you think? Can you know, it's not you doing it, and let's just assume you didn't even solicit it. I mean, people thought, Nick, you walked on water. They literally wrote, Nick walks on water when it comes to tax services. And Brian, they wrote, you got that same accolade. Can you just let it sit on your LinkedIn site?
Someone else wrote it for you.
Well, what? Someone
Someone
else.
else wrote it.
They truly believe
Well, there
Nick
shouldn't
and
be a
Brian both
problem.
walk on water when it comes to tax services.
Freedom of speech.
Yeah,
Can you
it's
just
fine.
leave it?
You have to, you
So-
have a choice, it's okay.
It says, what was that?
Do you have a choice? Then
It
people
says,
say.
while mere participation in these websites is not unethical, all content in a claim listing must conform to the detailed requirements of Rule 7.2B and must not be false, misleading, deceptive, or unfair. I don't know enough about LinkedIn. I don't know how you can manage that, so maybe you guys can help me, but the ethics opinion says you can't just let it go.
So
And
if
you
someone
have to be
posts-
proactive, and you really should eliminate that, no offense, Brian or Nick, maybe you can walk on water, but you just can't tell the public about that,
But
okay?
questions right now, nowadays, they have lots of untrue, news. So
Fake
we
news
don't know.
to say it in
Yeah, the
Trump's
fake
word?
news, we don't know, and then how you avoid the fake news.
Well, at least the ethics opinion says you can't just sit on your hands and say, wow, what can I do about it? You're supposed to proactively monitor that. If you put yourself on LinkedIn, all of a sudden you have responsibilities to make sure whatever's said about you professionally conforms with the ethical rules. Kevin?
What if I have no type of social media whatsoever?
Well, then you don't have an issue.
Yeah.
But once you're listed on LinkedIn and they say you walk on water, when it comes to your tax preparation services, you may have an issue. At
Well,
least
I
they-
don't know how LinkedIn works, so I can't elaborate, but okay.
All right. So I'm just pointing out to you, read this, I don't know of any cases yet, enforcement actions. I don't know, I'll share, I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't know, I've never tried to manage it. Sorry, B, I don't have an in-house counsel to manage my social media, so maybe your social media person can tell you, like, if there's something on LinkedIn, can that be tweaked if someone writes an accolade about you?
Yeah,
Well, that's all over. That's
yeah,
what
I mean,
LinkedIn is.
people do it all the time.
No, but they do it, but can you remove it?
Oh, yeah.
You have this.
You can't delete it.
You can't disappear.
But if they post it on their own site and it's something that has no
I can
physical
copy it.
connection
No.
to yours, you can't do anything with
That I
that.
agree,
Yeah.
but if they post it on your site, you can remove it.
Oh, yeah.
Anything
On your site, yeah,
your
you can
site,
take
you
down
can remove
anything.
it, yeah.
But
On
if
your
they're
site,
in
you
your
can do it,
account,
But if you're putting
right?
something on Glassdoor or LinkedIn or Twitter, then something terrible about a company, then you can't just remove it.
The person who put it has to.
No, I'm more on your site where if they post it, because isn't that where the public goes to look about you?
If
on-
someone goes on my site and endorses me for art or something that I have no idea about, I can absolutely remove it.
Okay, that's all, well, that's the point then of this
Yeah.
ethics opinion. On your site, you gotta monitor it, you can't just say, hey, they said it,
Yeah.
right? You cannot just,
Oh,
okay, final question. Suppose a client posts an endorsement of a tax lawyer on the client's website, okay, so that's different. If the lawyer learns of the endorsement, does the lawyer have responsibility as to the posting? Upon learning of the overly favorable posting, lawyers should advise the client to conform posts to the rule of professional conduct. So there you have it, Andrew, akin to what you were saying is that this is not on your website, this is on someone else's website. And they're saying, you can't just sit back and say, yeah, I can't touch this. You're supposed to reach out to the client and say, look, that doesn't conform with the rules of professional conduct. How many people do that? Cynically, not too many probably, and our state board's gonna really push that. Because there's a lot more egregious things. Go ahead, John.
How much can you really be held accountable for other people's actions?
Absolutely. So, anyway, guys, the message here, chapter 5, were you gonna say something, Dee, Dixie?
No.
Alright, so chapter 5, some quick takeaways, there are, what's permissible and what's not is not always clear, but there are some things that truly are impermissible, and you put your license at risk. So be very, very careful. And aside from putting your license at risk, chapter 6, we're gonna learn about something that's, the odds, unless you're really, really bad, most times you're not gonna get censored or potentially lose your license, but malpractice is extraordinarily prevalent and happens routinely. So what I'm gonna say is that it's a natural break point. I don't think we're gonna need all 4 hours today. There's a ton of food in the back. Why don't we take our 15-minute break and we'll get into chapter 6.